Nicotine is a substance that attracts many people and destroys them. This addiction is so strong that smokers themselves, realizing its harm, at the same time do not want to say goodbye to what supposedly gives pleasure or peace of mind in their lives. We have always known that for people, smoking is one of the ways to escape from problems. This phenomenon is related to the fact that when a person feels psychologically insecure about something, he or she would rather smoke than quickly solve a problem. It is necessary to realize that this substance harms not only the human body, but also the social component of a person. It destroys his personality. I always remember the phrase of the famous writer of the past, Honoré de Balzac. Tobacco kills grief, but also inevitably weakens energy. It harms the body, destroys the mind, and stuns whole nations. It must also be realized that such a supposedly true phrase as, "Who does not smoke and does not drink, he will die healthy," has nothing to do with reality. Do not fall for the trick of herd mentality. When you avoid it, you will realize how great and unique your life will become. In this video, we will tell a lot of interesting things about the harms of smoking, how a smoking person degrades, how non-smoking businessmen make money from smokers, and most interestingly, at the end, we will look at the best methodology on how to quit smoking. So make sure you watch the video to the end. Also, I have a huge request that will help a huge mass of people. If any of you have your own story of how you quit smoking, I strongly suggest you share it in the comments. Let's help each other together. So, why does a person start smoking? Almost always it is connected with psychology. Fatigued by the rhythm of life of modern man, because each of us is piled up with a lot of problems and solve them all, can only a few. That's why people start to get hooked on dopamine stimulants. For example, games, movies, TV series, alcohol, and finally nicotine. All of the above causes a surge of dopamine. That is, a kind of joy, and at the same time, relaxation. Something that is lacking in modern life. However, all dopamine simulators are wildly addictive. One should always remember that any pleasure must be paid for, and we pay with our energy. Yes, maybe, at the beginning of the introduction of dopamine stimulants, they remove fatigue and reduce anxiety. But the farther the worse it becomes addictive, and the dose of the stimulant is constantly increasing, which lowers the motivation of a person due to decreased sensitivity of dopamine receptors. The person becomes apathetic, bored, unwilling to do anything, and detached from their problems and society in general. It is the social psychological factors that lead a person to start smoking. Somewhere and in a certain period of time, the personality gives weakness. We have all been through it. Our life is always full of surprises, difficult moments, but everyone perceives such events differently. For some, it is a reason to show their weakness. For others, it is a challenge. A challenge that a person does not hesitate to accept and begins to solve all the problems that have appeared. But such people are few. Those who were not ready for such challenges got hooked on various kinds of dopamine stimulants and ruined their personal and professional qualities. I saw one of my colleagues who owned a chain of bakeries declare bankruptcy a couple of years ago when he just started having problems with creditors. He gave a slack. It was possible to get out of the situation, but my colleague, who had never smoked, decided to get heavily addicted to tobacco. He solved his problems slowly and lost his grip. He began to have an apathetic mindset and slowly withdrew from the business, introducing other stimulants into his life. He ended up losing everything, and today he regrets it very much. The fact is that not only nicotine itself is harmful, but also that which gets into our body in the process of burning cigarettes or smoking. Nicotine is an alkaloid that affects the nervous system. Nicotine comes in different forms: salt, liquid, and in cigarettes. If you think that electronic cigarettes and vape is a worthy alternative to conventional cigarettes with which you can quit smoking, you are deeply mistaken. Any kind of nicotine is harmful. What are the dangers of nicotine? Its main harm is the narrowing of capillaries and vessels, which leads to a lack of oxygen from which all organs suffer. Small capillaries are almost completely atrophied, and bronchi gradually lose their ability to clean themselves. Breathing becomes increasingly difficult, and any physical activity becomes too heavy. According to statistics, 90% of lung cancer cases are provoked by smoking. When nicotine enters the body, it is similar to the action of adrenaline. Heart rate increases, blood pressure rises, blood glucose concentration increases, appetite decreases. Accumulating, nicotine gradually damages the mucous membranes of the stomach. with each year of smoking increases the risk of esophageal, gastric, and pancreatic cancer. So you can forget about normal nutrition, and those who are prone to thinness will lose weight more and more. Moreover, because of the constant narrowing of blood vessels, blood circulation is disturbed and the heart starts to work harder, and the risk of heart attack increases. Smokers are 12 times more likely to encounter pathologies of the cardiovascular system than people who do not smoke. Smoking has a particularly detrimental effect on the human nervous system. When a person just starts smoking, nicotine has a good effect on the emotional state. But after a while, when the dose of its consumption per day increases, it causes constant mood swings. A strong apathy, inactivity, and disinterest in something appears. Rather than solving a problem, learning something, outlining a plan for personal development, doing sports, a person will prefer to smoke. This will release dopamine, after which everything else will seem less important than it really is. The smoker's brain also begins to experience a lack of oxygen, and if nicotine does not arrive for longer than a day, there is even more drowsiness, a decline in mood power. Very often, rashes on the skin of the face are associated with smoking. It leads to the fact that increases the production of sebum and due to lack of oxygen reduces the production of collagen. Smoking also affects the wallet because a smoker needs at least a pack of cigarettes a day. Suppose a person buys a pack of cigarettes daily for $20. In a week he spends $140 on cigarettes. In a month, $840. In a year, $10,080. And in 5 years he will spend $50,400, 50.40. That's not even taking into account inflation and the corresponding price increases. For an ordinary citizen of many countries, such costs will be significant. In total we get extremely high risk of lung cancer, increased risk of heart attack, risk of stomach cancer, lack of appetite, emotional surges, apathy, and social degradation of personality. Smokers may not take it seriously. They think that these are just scare stories and cigarettes are not as evil as they seem. However, those who think this way will regret it sooner or later. We believe that each of you knows many smokers who do not recommend others to get hooked on nicotine, but at the same time cannot get off the needle. It is better to listen to them rather than ignore them. But another fact is also interesting. The cigarette business profits from people addicted to nicotine. The profits are huge. Philip Morris International, the largest tobacco company, made about $5 billion in net profits for 2023. Professionals don't smoke. Many senior figures in the tobacco industry don't touch tobacco products. The former director of Philip Morris was also a non-smoker and is also actively implementing on cigarette harm reduction. Such examples can be cited endlessly. However, the essence of the same business has always profited and profits on people's weaknesses. One understanding of this disgusts the desire to abuse all dopamine stimulants. So, how do you quit smoking? There are actually 2 ways to quit: abrupt quitting and gradual quitting. Quitting once and never smoking again is a difficult task. I personally know one such person who finished the last dose and never touched cigarettes again. He was psychologically very stable and strong. He decided to quit at the moment when his son was born, and his desire to raise his son without tobacco smoke in the house was much stronger than the desire to smoke. This example proves that the most important is the psychological attitude of the person who decided to quit a harmful habit. This is confirmed by many doctors. Therefore, first of all, set up psychologically and ask yourself the question, why do you want to quit smoking? How much better your life will be without nicotine? Quitting right away will not work for 95% of people, so I recommend the gradual quitting methodology. This scheme is the best method of how to eliminate dependence on nicotine once and for all. So the essence of gradual abandonment of any habit, it is a gradual adjustment of the dopamine system to new sensations in life. Without this habit, this applies to nicotine addiction. The plus side of this method is that it is much easier for both the psychology of the smoker and his body. To begin with, it is necessary to switch to light cigarettes. In this case, the smoker will want to smoke more often because of the reduced dosage of cigarettes. It is necessary to strictly adhere to a certain number of cigarettes, corresponding to the usual norm. Before the start of quitting, about 1 to 2 weeks, the body will get used to the change in dose. Further, when you get used to light cigarettes, you will need to smoke not the whole cigarette, but 2/3 of a cigarette. So you keep smoking for 1 to 2 weeks and then start smoking only half a cigarette at a time. If you manage to do this, then I congratulate you. You have already reduced your nicotine intake by 4 times. Then you start to gradually reduce the daily dose by 1 cigarette and continue to reduce the amount every week. The hardest thing to do here, as stated by smokers, is to pass the middle of the stage, and this is where a lot of doubts arise. You gradually reduce the number of cigarettes and reach that wonderful moment when you can smoke 2 half cigarettes per day. In fact, you have already defeated the physical dependence and largely coped with psychological dependence, and it remains only to recognize it and give up purely symbolic smoking of minimal doses. It is with the help of such a technique any of you will be able to defeat your bad habit. Be sure to keep it, review it, memorize it, and follow it exactly. If something does not work out, it is not a reason to blame yourself. It means that your addiction is strong. It will take even longer to quit, so nicotine addiction is a very sinister addiction. A smoker not only kills his body, but also leads his personality to degradation. I recommend you don't fall for the herd mentality that if everyone smokes, it's a good thing not to. And I'll say goodbye. Subscribe to my Telegram channel, wait for new videos, and see you soon.